Hi, Dan. So something I've been meaning to do for a little while is get a picture of all of my planes that I use with any real regularity. I have a couple others tucked away back there. A couple of them, one's a no-name Amazon, which is my very first hand plane. It kind of works okay. It's a number 5 and a vintage Frankenplane. It's a Frankenstein. It's got a little bit of this and a little bit of that still needs to be retuned and redone. But I wanted to take a picture of all the ones that I use with any real frequency. And not all of them get a lot of use every day. It's a matter of what I need on that particular project. And this is not to say you need all of these immediately. Each of these planes I've come across, it's like as I'm working on a project, it's like, oh, it'd be nice to have one that does that kind of cut. And I've added one with a different part of each project, or each project I've added a plane or two as I've needed. It's kind of a combination here of various brands and makes and whatnot, but here's going to be your bread and butters, like a bench set. These are Type 11 Stanleys. I've got a number 4, which is a smoother. That's probably going to be one of your most common. 4s and 5s are going to be the ones that you'll see most common everywhere. They're inexpensive, relatively speaking. I have Miller's Falls equivalents, which this is a number 9, which is 9 inches, same as a number 4. They're a tiny little bit different in length. I think the Stanley is about 1/4 of an inch longer, but that doesn't really make much of a difference. And then a 14, which is the same as a 5, basically. Same width, same length, within reason. And then you've got a number 7. I don't have an 8. I may add one eventually, but a number 7 is my jointer. A 7 is wider than a 5 and a 4. And of course, obviously longer. This is 22 inches compared to 14 inches. My second plane I ever got was this, which is a Rabbit plane. Now this is a Craftsman made by Sargent. Craftsman licensed out to have their tools made for a long time. The Sargent, what makes this in particular easily identifiable as a Sargent is the little nib here, which is often broken. And the handle, the shape of the handle with the little indentation and the depressions here. I don't like this one as much as I like my Stanley version here, because the Stanley has a nice user-friendly feature. This, in order to advance or retract, you have to tap, and I have this tiny little hammer I got just for that. It's not difficult, it's just not as easy as with a number 78 Rabbit plane, or Rebate if you're across the pond, because it has this little lever for the advance and retract. Side to side, it doesn't really have anything. You have to get it there by feel when you're setting the iron. But my newest kind of Rebate plane I have is the Jackrabbit, as it's called sometimes. This is basically, it's a number 5, but it's, as you can see, you've got these little notches cut out on the side where the blade comes right to the side, as opposed to on the cheeks on a 5. And you can see on the bottom there, of course, it doesn't come all the way across. This was probably one of my first 2 or 3 planes. It's a Stanley 220, nothing special, but it was my first plane that I kind of cleaned up and got back into working condition. It looked awful. It needed a lot of love, and it's been dropped at some point in its life, and somebody brazed the leader cap here. But I live in Iowa, and black and gold, the Hawkeyes, we're fond of our Hawkeyes. This is another block. This one I got from a Facebook auction group. It's a Craftsman, but it's made by Miller's Falls. Craftsman licensed out a lot of their, like I said, the rabbit plane. This one has an adjustable mouth, so you can turn this and the mouth will adjust forward and back. Then you've got one that I'd really wanted for a long time, was a router plane. Now this is one that is very, very versatile for any kind of joinery. If you're cutting the bottoms of dados, or if you want to get a tenon, just to kind of finesse that tenon into fit. So a router plane is really, really nice to have. It just does all kinds of great little joinery tasks. This in particular is a 71, and I'd wanted one for quite a while, and I bid on a lot of auctions, just missed until I got this one all the way from England and it's shipped. It's got the 1/2 inch iron is in right now, but it also came with a 1/4 and the 1/2 inch spear point, and it has this little fence that screws onto the bottom. I leave the screw in there so I don't lose that screw. You can screw this fence on. The screw actually comes from the other side, from the bottom here. It's got this little fence, one with a round point for 2 points of contact, or a straight one if you were cutting the bottoms of drawers or something like that. It comes in useful. This is going to be one of your really, really handy planes, a router. Well before I got this bigger Stanley 71, I had this little Tay-Tools, I think, or I'm not sure. It's a Japanese or Chinese manufactured, very small little. It's a kind of a knockoff of a, I'm not sure if it's based on the Veritas pattern or the Stanley 271 with the kind of hexagon shape there. I'm not sure, octagon shape, I'm not sure. Routers are really, really handy. Then you've got combination plane. Now this is a Stanley 45, and it looks really, really daunting because you have all these knobs and screws and nuts, and this particular one, it's not complete because I don't have a little depth screw here and a couple other depth stops and various bits, but combination planes are really handy for all kinds of things, because the Stanley 45 was supposed to be marketed as a plane that replaces a lot of other planes. You can put all these different cutters in there. These are all the straight cutters, and then you can do tongue and groove, and this is a sash cutter. These are all the straights. This is a tongue and groove. So these tongue and grooves are actually matched with 1/4 inch and 3/16, I believe. And then as well, I have this other box of cutters that got fluting and beading and multiple beads. It's amazing all the little things that you can get with a 45. And it can be a little fiddly to set up a 45, but it just works really, really well for what it does. There's some other accessories like the hollow and round bottoms to make it basically a hollow and round plane. I'm also missing the shorter rods for this, but I know a guy on a Facebook group, Just Plain Fun, thank you MJ, who he's going to hook me up with those. This is a side rebate plane. You don't need this very often, number 79. This is an older one. The newer ones had the capability to add an accessory fence to keep it 90, but if you have a dado, I need to get that dado just a little bit wider, just by a little tiny bit. That guy comes in very, very handy. Then we got shoulder planes. I have two. I have a 92 and a 93. And they're a little bit different in size, as you can see. In length, the 93 I think is 6.5 or 6 3/4, maybe close to 7. But it's another 1/4 inch wider too, a lot heavier. If you want to get into the corners of rabbits or cleaning the shoulders of tenons, that's what these guys are really, really good at. They also have another trick up their sleeve. They can become a bullnose plane. You turn this screw and this part comes off. And now that point, you can get right into corners. When you're using a 7 for jointing and you want to get that 90-degree angle, you can do it by feel. Like James Wright, often if you put your hand up here, we're really good at with our eyes and our fingers being able to tell 90. But they make an accessory, or made an accessory, to go on Stanley planes. Stanley's not the only one that manufactured something like this, but either on a 5 or bigger, you can put this fence on. It's a 386, I think. Yes, 386. And then you can set that fence to different angles. Most of the time you're probably going to want that 90. But you put it on the side, it attaches with these little screws and these little tabs that grab onto it. And then you use your, normally this would have a wooden fence. I haven't put it on. I haven't made one yet. You set your square on there, you get it to 90, and you can get your nice crisp corner. Is it absolutely necessary? No. Is it nice to have? It can be. Especially again when you're still learning and you need the training wheels. Then we're going to come over. We've got, this is a number 112 cabinet scraper. This is like a card scraper on steroids. This is another one. Do you really need it? No. Is it nice to have in certain situations? Yes. It's adjustable. It's got these two screws that will advance and tilt the iron back. This holds the scraper there. I still haven't gotten quite the feel for sharpening it and getting it at the right angle yet. Another one that you really only need in certain situations, but when you do need it for those situations, it's really nice to have, is a number 13, or they make a number 20 as well, or made number 20 as well. Compass plane. You turn this knob and it changes the sole into a curve, whether a concave or a convex. If you're doing like arts and crafts or craftsman style furniture with curved arches underneath the table, aprons and things like that, it's nice to have. It's one of those you're only going to bring out in those certain situations. Another that's very specialized, but again handy to have. I mentioned it in my sharpening video. A scrub plane. It's got a very narrow sole, pretty short. It's about the length of a 4, but much narrower, as you can see. And rather than a straight iron, like I said in the sharpening video, it has a real big, heavy camber. A scrub plane, it doesn't have a lever, a chip breaker either. It's just an iron and a lever cap. If you want to take a lot of material, if you're working with rough sawn material, or if you're flattening a tabletop or a workbench, which I have a workbench I'm planning that will come in useful. Then we have the cousins. These are spoke shaves. This is a Stanley 64, I think. It's a flat bottom spoke shave. Number 64, yeah. 64 and 51 are very similar. They have a flat bottom rather than a curved bottom. This one has a touch of rust on it. I need to clean that up and put some oil on it. It's just a tiny little blade, very small sole. It's like a very small plane. A flat bottom is really good at flat work or convex curves and bigger concave curves. When you get into tighter concave curves, you'll need or want a round bottom. This is a cheap Tay Tools round bottom. I've seen some guys take a 64 or 51 and modify the bottom to a round bottom, and that lets you get into those tighter curves. I have another spoke shave. This is a Miller's Falls cigar spoke shave. This will let you get into really tight curves. As you can see, the body, it's all round. It looks like a cigar, you know. Sharpening this iron is it's an adventure. It's because the iron itself is actually curved. It takes some skill and dexterity to sharpen this iron compared to a little spoke shave iron, which one of the tricks that some guys use with spoke shave irons, if your Eclipse guide or whatever won't hold it and you can't get enough grip with your fingers, you'll take a pair of pliers or vice grips and gently, firm enough to hold it but not enough to mark it, you grab it and then that gives you enough surface. This, you just kind of it's a whole different animal to sharpen this. This is another one of those that, do you really need it? Not often. But in those very certain situations, it is really nice to have this cigar spoke shave. Let's see, did I talk about them all? Yeah, that is my collection of what I use with any real degree of regularity of my hand planes. You know, you start with your bench planes, and then you get into your more specialty joinery planes with your probably one of your first is going to be a rabbit with a 78 like this. This actually has an accessory handle that I found on eBay. It makes it nice because it doesn't have the nib like that, the Sargent, Craftsman Sargent. Every time you come across a joint where you know, having that plane would be handy and you have the disposable income and to get it, go for it, you know. I mean, keep your eyes open on eBay. You can create saved searches, so if there's a particular kind you're looking for, whether a 78 or a 92 or a scrub or a router. I had a save for a 71 for a long time. Yeah, just wait for between the need and opportunity come together, and eventually you'll have a collection. This is obviously nowhere near, like if you look at Stumpy Nubs, he's got the whole wall of planes, or James Wright on Wood by Wright has a whole wall of planes. I'm not there yet. These are just as I've gone through collecting over 3 or so years, I've gotten quite a few. If you have any questions about a particular plane you want to see more about, or whatnot, leave a comment. And thanks for coming again. Bye.